Okay, here we are. I can already say that in terms of convenience factor, using something like a mobile phone to carry all of my other mobile devices is preferred. This backpack is pretty heavy, but I guess I never really would carry all of these in my backpack unless I was traveling somewhere. On the other hand, there's something to be said about the mental convenience, and there I have a distinct knowledge that everything that's in my backpack has a particular role in my life, different things that I don't know if you can hear those church bells. I think it's about 12 o'clock here, so that explains the noisiness. Anyway, mental convenience. I have, there's a sense of freedom that comes when you really only have one or two or three things that you can do or are ready to do, or even zero things to do. And that's one of the things that changes drastically when in my backpack, which is more typically the case, or in whatever I'm carrying, are just the one or two things that I actually want to use. But I think a bigger question over convenience is what happens when I, as a unitasker by nature, give control of my life to a computer in small format, in the form of my phone, which is by nature a multitasker. And this is where I would say that you don't actually become a multitasker, or better, at multitasking by doing that. You actually only become worse at getting things done. You just become more hurried, more scattered, more unable to do the things that you really can do well. So it's a question really of incompatibility. I think you've seen the sport now that they have chess boxing, where they combine boxing in a ring with playing a chess match. And I was gonna sit here, but it looks like some homeless person has beat me to it. Not sure where I actually can sit up here. There's usually some nice benches up here, but they've been taken. Anyway, chess boxing. So the idea is, you try to beat the brains out of somebody, and then also, or get your brains beat out of you, and then try to beat the other person with your brains. The whole challenge is the incompatibility of the two things, which is why you would only want to be a professional to do that sort of thing. And in a sense, that's what we're trying to do by taking our computer, again in the form of a mobile phone, with us wherever we go. It's like chess boxing, where we try to focus on one thing, whatever we're doing, unitasking like we are good at doing, and then having this device that sort of says, okay, now look at this, now look at this, now look at this. Here, I can sit down here. Okay, let's see what I brought in my backpack. It's a street sweeper in the background. These are all the things that I supposedly replace by owning a mobile phone. The most obvious first one is just a regular old mobile phone. The street sweeper's coming back. Not sure. This can make calls. This is actually, it is my phone. There's the street sweeper again. Okay, this is one of my favorite things. This is an iPod. Not a lot of these are around anymore. People confuse them with phones. My kids think this is a phone. Of course, they don't think that a phone actually calls people. They think phones are like tools to play games on. I don't know. I remember the day when I saw the first advertisement that combined these two things. But The thing about this is, when I take this with me, my intent is just to listen to something, whether it's going to be music or a lecture, podcast, something like that. I just have this, and then I'm able to focus on that, just that. Of course, cameras have been a part of phones for the longest time. I actually remember getting one of the phones that had one of the first cameras. Terrible camera. And in fact, they haven't become any better. This here small format mirrorless camera is way better than any camera in any phone that you're going to get. And I'm the kind of person who takes a camera with them quite a lot because I like to take pictures. And I would never think of substituting the one for the other just because it's just better. I know that here's my wallet. I know that they are actually being built into phones. I couldn't pay for anything when I went to China. That's not true. There are a few stores I couldn't shop in because they all use WePay or WeChat or something like that. This is a map. I really do like maps. I think one of the things about a map like this is that nobody has paid to have their business be featured on this map. This is sort of an independent map maker, kind of a mobile idea, stick it in your pocket, pull it out, don't look like a tourist, or this is Munich, so I don't really need this one anymore. It doesn't give me directions, it doesn't tell me traffic time, so there are some disadvantages. However, it does keep my map making skills going. Let's see what else I've got. A book. I'm a big reader, and I've tried e-reading before. I understand the concept of being able to put all your books into one device. I just would never read all those books at once. I'm reading at most 4 or 5 books, and if I'm going to go somewhere, I could obviously take those 4 or 5 books in here. I rarely would do that. I'd basically have the idea of reading one. And I don't think there's anybody out there who's saying that reading with an e-reader or with a phone is somehow better than reading with an actual book. It's starting to get kind of windy here. I'm not sure my microphone's going to hold up. Okay, in a sense, similar, my Bible, lots of Bible apps. I still have a physical Bible, which I would recommend using. I sometimes just copy pages if I don't want to take the whole thing, because again, I'm not going to be reading the whole Bible, so I just copy the page that I want. This is something that's actually rather rare. This is the first tour guide that I bought, I think, in my life. When I really hadn't been to Germany ever. Tells you what sights to see, you could see, tells you where to go to eat, tells you where you can go to sleep. Of course, before internet was everywhere, you needed something like this to know where you were going. I still buy them because I would prefer to have an independent sort of writer tell me this is good, this is not good, rather than somebody who's just paying for ad space or can work the Google search stuff. My journal, I would always prefer to write on a physical page with a pen than to type something into a device. I'm actually just more focused with something like that. And then as an example, this is really more an example of a gaming console, because this is what my kids think of that this is used for. Obviously, it does other things too, but if I was a gamer, I used to be a gamer, having a portable, the old Game Boy thing, and then my laptop, which is of course with the keyboard, best way to do word processing, looking at internet, video conferencing. I take this out to work outside of the home. I can take it traveling. And something like this, there's certain things that never really could be replaced in all of these things. You never really could replace them if they were a small format. I'll set that over there and put this down. Now, why would I use any of these devices over a smartphone? brought my wife's broken smartphone with me. And three things. One is any single one of these things does the job better, with some small exceptions. There are some things like, I can't get directions off of the map. I'm never going to carry a whole phone book with me. So they can do everything that they want to do better. I'll always be able to take a better picture with something like this than I would with something like this, except that this can actually make calls and send texts. So telegrams. I'd like to send a telegram sometime. The other thing is I'm able to be unattached, and by that I mean disconnected from everybody that I ever met. I mean, I don't even take phones. I don't take phones with me when I leave the house. I mean, I do have a phone at the house, but I'm disconnected from the internet. I'm disconnected from any video conferencing, disconnected from people who are calling me. I grew up in a house with a doctor, which meant that they were on call on weekends or in evenings in the middle of the night. Generally, doctors don't think that's the best part of their job because they're just pulled out of their free time in order to do work. And we have somehow convinced ourselves that that would be better if we were all on call all the time, always there, are in touch with work or in touch with all the people we ever met in our life. That's somehow better. We don't have times of separation, of distance, or even from our families. I mean, I really value the time when my kids are taken care of by somebody else and I'm not going to be talked to, especially now in Corona times when they're always at home. And of course, the biggest thing is thirdly, that I can be more focused. I can actually be off the hook. That's this old term about phones where you actually can then take the phone off the hook, disconnect it, and then focus on what you were doing. That phrase, phones ringing off the hook. Well, that's basically like the modern day version of getting notifications constantly or emails constantly. And it's a way for me to actually then get the things done that I'm wanting to do. Now that may be calling a bunch of people, or that may be writing a bunch of emails, being in a video conference, actually focusing on people. But there isn't anything that I can do that I couldn't do better if I didn't have all this other stuff next to me. And that's the thing about going mobile is, well, I usually don't take this backpack, but I only would take one of these things, or none of these things, or two or three, just what it is that I'm actually going to work on. And the same goes for what I'm doing at home, where the room that I'm in doesn't contain all of these things sitting next to me on the couch. And I think for a lot of people, the question is, well, what am I going to do when I'm just waiting, when I don't have anything to do, when I'm bored? And one of the answers is just going to be bored. There are some studies out there that talk about how boredom actually produces and induces creativity. Especially in kids, but in adults too, these down times when our minds are able to rest and we're able to sort of put together and make new connections and come up with ideas that we wouldn't come up with when we're constantly engaged with something. And then of course the other thing that you can do is just one thing. You can read a book, you can work with your camera, try to adjust the settings, you can read a map, you can just watch a video, just listen to music, just watch the people around you. It's a way of just clearing the mind from all of those other things that it really can't pay attention to anyway, and being able to do the one thing that you've set out to do now. So in terms of practical suggestions, one of the biggest things is taking control of your multitasking devices. You, the unitasker, take control of them and make them work for you. Now there are lots of different ways in which you can do that. One is, having set times when you actually use them or don't use them. I don't use my computer all day throughout the day. There are times when it has to be shut, and when I'm not using it, street sweeper. I doubt anyone's going to get rid of all of these things, phone, tablet, computer. You might consider picking one that you don't actually need, but really don't give control of your life to these things. You take control of them and let them work for you as a unitasker. And what that might mean secondly is to consider downsizing any of these things. That may be getting a less featured, whatever it is, a less featured computer, less featured tablet, less featured phone, finding ways to just remove apps, making it as streamlined as possible. I think in this case we need a lot more manufacturers to create devices which don't have things. I would love to find the computer or the tablet or the phone that does not have any internet capabilities. I can never actually go on and look at a website. I might actually get a phone. And then the third thing, I've already mentioned it, is choose one or two mobile devices. All these things that I put in my backpack are mobile devices, things that I can take with me. Choose one or two when you leave the house, and just the time, devote it to that. Say, okay, well, I'm going to listen to music, I'm not going to take pictures, or I'm going to read, but I'm not going to listen to music, or I'm going to walk around and explore the city with a map, but I'm not going to listen to music, or I can't think I've said listen to music so many times. But just pick one or two and make that what your time is going to be about. And consider then just leaving your phone, especially at home, even at home, finding times to sort of just put it in a drawer, power it off, and just live without it. You might have to set times like, after you get home from work or after you finish dinner, it's off, it's done, its time has completed. There are going to be some more videos here in terms of digital communication and technology with regard to spirituality and spiritual life. I'll try to do some of those here as well as I can. That's my plan for the next time. But I will see you next time, and until then.
I've been walking and thinking about the path behind me. I get lost in the forest when every tree looks the same.
So I hope that was helpful for you all to think about what sort of role digital communication and technology can have in our overall spiritual life and what our life is about as a whole. Thank you for subscribing if you're doing that, and thank you to everyone who has given to make these sort of things possible or has helped in any way in the background. I am just so heavy. I will see you next time. Okay? I would never do this.
My happiest day.